So that's the section, first part of page 1. The next part talks about the summary of the features. I'm not going to beat this up a whole lot. It basically, most everything everybody's doing these days is pretty much a fixed rate. But in the future, we'll see more adjustables and balloons and things like that again as the rates move. But this section right here summarizes the loan. It tells you about the terms. The next section down talks about an escrow account information. It wants to know, is this estimate with or without an escrow account? And part of the confusion right here is it's going to show you the principal and interest payment and any MI, whether it be private mortgage insurance or MIP. So it's a partial payment. It's going to be a little bit confusing because they're going to say, well, what does this represent? And it represents really just the principal and interest. And if you have MIP or PMI, it'll also be included in this number under escrow account. But this says whether you will or won't have one. And then at the bottom it says the origination fee from your lender, in this case 3050, and then all of the charges from title company, ancillary fees, and escrow accounts. So in this scenario, it's adding up to $13,183. Now this is going to match the same thing as page 1, which what we did for an example. I think the same thing that Stewart Title is using, is we did a $200,000 30-year fixed rate FHA loan. Okay, so all these examples as you go through them are for that type of product. Page 2 of the new good faith estimate is going to break down the origination fees. Basically, the lender for the most part doesn't break them down. We basically give them one number, and there you have it. To this number, we're not allowed to adjust. Once we quote this origination fee, we're there. We're honored. So we have to honor this thing for at least 10 business days while they do it, regardless of what adjustments they make. Okay? The number 2 section is if they want to look at a buy down, if they want to pay points, which, you know, again, from time to time that does happen. If they want to pay discount points to lower their rate, that'll be shown in the section 2. Or vice versa, if they want a higher rate to get a lender credit so they have less closing costs, that'll also be addressed in section 2.
Jeff, can I ask a question?
Please, go ahead.
You stated the origination fee is fixed for 10 days irregardless. What if they decide to put a larger down payment down?
We can only charge less. We can't charge more. We would have to drop the rate in that scenario. We would have to drop, if they put down more, we would do it. We could actually raise it if they adjust the loan amount. We do have the ability to do what they call a change circumstance. The way HUD has put this together, once we issue a good faith estimate, they really don't want it changing. I mean, as far as they want, they do not want it. For us to change it, we have to do what we call a change circumstance. It's a redisclosure. It's a definite, we got to keep track of every single one we do that have to be in the file for audit. And, but it can be changed for situations like that.
So Jeff, I have a question too.
Please.
It's my understanding you cannot issue this unless you have a specific property. Is that true?
That's how we're handling it, yes ma'am.
So if that's the case and they want to shop loans while they're shopping for a home, how is that going to be handled?
It's very difficult. Because as a lender, we really can't hardly do a to-be-determined good faith estimate like we used to. We have kind of a workaround, like a worksheet we're going to provide as a ballpark, but to issue a good faith estimate, that's a legally binding document now. So we're held from a liability standpoint that if we're off, we're writing a check for it. Therefore, we have to be pretty accurate.
Because we need to have the mortgage to be picked out by the time we find a house.
Well, we're given on our new version. It's called a worksheet. It's really the old good faith.
It's kind of,
a worksheet.
yeah, it's very much like the old good faith estimate that we're using, and we're not allowed to call it an estimate anymore. We'll hit that in just a minute. But yeah, we do have kind of a workaround, the best you can say, and we had to come up with something because we can't issue a good faith estimate. People want to know what they want to know what's my payment and what's going to cost me, which this doesn't tell you anyway. We'll hit that here in a second. But this top portion is going to talk about the lender section. There's basically 3 sections on page 2. It's fees that can't change by the lender, which is this section. The fees with a 10% aggregate tolerance, which are fees that we estimate for other third parties, that we have to be fairly accurate on, because if we're not, we basically write the check for any delta, any difference on that. And then finally, fees that can change, which are things beyond our control, taxes, insurance, escrow accounts. Okay? So let's do the second section. This is section 1 that we can't change. Section 2 is usually title company fees for the most part, and third-party fees. So we're getting to communication really strong with Stewart Title and the title companies to find out what their fees are to make sure we're as accurate as we can. And as you guys are well aware, when you go to closing, sometimes there's different T36s, T17s, the different endorsements that go along with different situations. Same way with surveys. You'll probably hear your lender call you from time to time going, hey, is this a regular lot and block type survey? You know, are we reusing a survey? I'll probably tell you that even if you're planning to reuse a survey, your lender is going to probably still estimate one, because if it's not acceptable for any reason, they're going to have to pay for it. So they'll probably estimate one and tell your buyer that if you don't need it, you don't need it. Because we really won't know if it's acceptable until the title company's cleared it and everybody else has. They're also going to ask you, is it a standard lot and block, or is it on acreage, so we know kind of how to estimate for a survey. Yeah.
So the MIP PMI, which is really probably gonna be in the loan, is still thrown in here, which is gonna make them think they're paying that much more.
Right. It's coming up here in this, there it is right here, you're right. The MIP and the PMI, the title policy, there's going to be charges on here that the buyer is not used to seeing at all. Title policy, standardly paid by the seller, 9 times out of 10. It's going to be shown on the, it's going to shown in the total. The MIP is almost 9 times out of 10 or better financed into the loan amount, but it's still going to be shown here as a charge, and there's no credit for it at this point.
Jeff, like that bottom title policy like you were talking about, what we're just having to do is show it on the back, charge to your, to your buyer, and then on the front of the HUD, there's a credit for the title policy back.
Yeah, but that's on the, that's on the HUD, but on the good faith estimate,
Yeah, and the
we
good
can't
faith.
show any credits.
But they will get their credit. If
Yeah, they will get it.
The seller's gonna pay it.
Yeah, no.
You're still going to be doing almost the same thing you were doing before, it's just how they're going to be seeing it. The final, so this goes through some of the other ancillary fees. This shows the survey we've estimated for, the pest inspection, and again, as Priscilla pointed out, the PMI MIP 3377 is in there as a charge, which typically we wouldn't have shown that in the first good faith that we showed you on page 1, because it was financed. So it's not something they're bringing to closing. And then finally, as you go through here, it talks about the prepaid section. I won't hit on that much. It's your initial deposits, daily interest rate, and estimated insurance. So this is showing about $13,000. Now keep in mind, this $13,000 showing in charges here doesn't include down payment. So if you were to compare that to the old good faith estimate, we estimated that they would need about 15 grand on the bottom right, of which $7,000 of that was down payment. So that means our numbers would have estimated old about 8,000. Now it's showing about 13,000. So it's going to be very confusing to the buyer because they're going to see a bunch of costs that, basically it's a list of all costs, regardless who pays it, whether the seller pays it, the lender pays it, a third party pays it. They're just wanting to show all costs. And again, the purpose of this form is to let the buyer take it out and compare lender to lender to lender, because nobody can show anything POC. They can't show anything paid by somebody else. They just got to show all parties. The other